Hello and welcome to this Path of Exile beginner guide. This is the second video of a 4-part series where I'll do my best to cover this amazing game and help out new players better understand it, the systems it has in place, endgame content, monetization model, and if I do a good job, it will help you better understand the game if you already started or if you've never played Path of Exile. Hopefully after these videos you can decide for yourself if this is something you want to get into or not. Now I know that at first glance this game seems cool but really complicated, but believe me, it is so worth taking a few minutes, hours, and learning a bit about it before starting. Hello everybody, what is up? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a fantastic day. If this is your first time here, then welcome. My name is Tibby from Vectorburn. And today I bring you the second part of a 6-part video series for Path of Exile Beginner's Guide. Now, as the title implies, this is a guide specifically meant for new players coming into the game. Path of Exile has a lot of cool systems, but they are pretty complicated, so I just want to give you enough knowledge for you to kind of get your foot into the door and kind of understand how things work. As before, we are going to cover 6 distinct topics. These topics will be currency, trading, crafting, hideouts, quest and story, and finally the eternal labyrinth. So, as before, I want to re-emphasize that I am not going to go into too much detail because for a new player that is just absolutely confusing and there's no point to it. Let's take crafting for example. Path of Exile has an amazing crafting system, but it's also pretty complex, so for a new player it would make no sense for me to just throw all that information in here, but if there's enough requests I might do a video specifically just for crafting. Now before we begin, if this video is helpful to you in any way, don't forget to hit that like button or that subscribe. It really does help out a lot, and if you didn't like the video, just download the hell out of it. I mean, it's free either way. So, with that being said, let's get started with the video. Okay, so getting things started, we begin with the first one on the list, which is currency. So, Path of Exile has a very unique way of tackling in-game currency. What I mean by this is that there is no gold, no silver, money, coin, whatever that will drop from mobs. This system is entirely replaced by various currency items that will constantly drop while slaying enemies out in the world. The value of each of these orbs is mainly dictated by what it does as well as its rarity. So the most commonly used currency item for trades will be the Chaos Orb. You can think of this as the traditional gold in other games, sort of as a base stack. There are a whole bunch of orbs, scrolls, fragments, etc. Which will be used for trades, but the most frequently used one will be the Chaos Orb, followed by the Exalted Orb, which is much more valuable and rare than the Chaos. Now the value of the currency will constantly shift depending on several determining factors, such as league maturity. So at the very beginning of any league, all currency items will be rapidly changing in value, stabilizing, or even slightly keep increasing as the league progresses past a month or so. Then league mechanics. So like if the current league has some sort of mechanic where you can more easily target farm currency drops, this will inflate all market prices. You get the idea. It's similar to a real-world economy, and a lot of players will focus only on building and chasing wealth in the game. This applies to the 3-month temporary leagues, so the seasons, and not for standard, because in standard prices are pretty stagnant and predictable. Now, as mentioned, all of these currency orbs can also use to modify and craft gear, which is why I think it's a way more interesting economy than the traditional gold. You can't really change your gear that much with gold without relying on some sort of separate mechanics, like reforging stations for example, where you would spend a set amount of gold to reroll an item mod. Now in Path of Exile, each currency item modifies a piece of gear in some way. This can mean adding additional stats, re-rolling socket colors, socket numbers, re-rolling stat values, upgrading items from white to blue, from blue to yellow, even from a white base item to potentially a unique item. Now, I won't list what each currency piece does, since you can simply just hover over them with your cursor in-game and just read. But a good example could be the Exalted Orb, which can add an additional stat to an item that has room for more stats. So this function makes these orbs very desirable when crafting endgame items, and they're also pretty rare to drop, though it is really RNG based, because like in some leagues I had really bad luck and went 3-4 weeks without seeing any drop, and then other times I could get 1, 2, even 3 exalts in a single map. So, you know, good luck to you all. Now, as a last noteworthy info on the subject, the Mirror of Calandra is the most rare and coveted currency item in the game. And they are extremely rare, and I do mean extremely rare, because I've been playing for almost 6 years now and have never seen one drop, but they have the ability to duplicate an item. So these would be especially sought after in Standard League, where people have crafted near perfect items, and duplicating one is the most logical thing to do if you want some easy money. Now, this is not to say that they're not valuable in leagues by any means, but I think Standard has kind of more use for them. So all in all, the currency items are really working in Path of Exile's favor, being unique enough to keep things interesting while also not being overly complicated, and prices can be predicted to a certain degree depending on their usefulness and their drop rate. Alright, now since we talked about currency and economy, let's move on to the second subject on our list, which is the actual trading system. Now, trading in this game is a bit more complicated and tedious than other games, meaning that the vast majority of the PoE community will either use a third-party website to trade, sell and buy items, or PoE's own website. Either way, you will need to tab out of your game, fire up your browser, and you'll typically use a pre-written text, which you'll copy and paste back into your game chat box in order to whisper the player which listed the item you're buying. Now, this probably sounds more complicated than it is, however, it's quite simple, so allow me to demonstrate. Now, first we access PoE's trading website, which is pathofexile.com/trade. There's also PoE.trade, which does the same thing, though it has a different skin and it has been around before the official trade website released. Now here you can select the specific league you're playing, Metamorph in this case, and then proceed to look up the item you're trying to buy. You will notice a bunch of filters here that can help you narrow down your search results. Now, I won't go into detail what each of the filters do, that might warrant a separate video. However, for the sake of this demo, let's say we're looking for a unique item called Impulse's Broken Heart, which is a very strong chest armor, unique chest armor, used in like lightning-based builds. So now here we will also apply a socket filter, since you'll most likely be looking for at least a 5-link chess piece, unless you can afford the more expensive 6-link. So now we apply the filters that says the item should have at least 5 links, and we hit search. Now the search results will appear in ascending order by price. Once we find what we're looking for, we simply hit the whisper button, which basically copies a generic text to our clipboard, starting with the seller name and continuing with the phrase, "Hi, I would like to buy your item here," so Impulse's Broken Heart Sadist Garb, listed for X amount of chaos in Metamorph League. We then go back to our game, open up the chat box, and paste in the whisper with Ctrl V. Next, we hopefully get invited by the player we whispered, and it's common practice that you go to the seller's hideout. So many new players won't know this, and they'll just wait around, hoping for the trade to somehow happen. However, many times you will just get uninvited or get an answer with my HO, which means my hideout. Now here you can either click the little circle next to the party member's name, or just right-click the member's portrait and select Visit Hideout. Now, once we load in, you will get traded the item, you add in the amount owed, and bam, that's the trading system in a nutshell. So it's not a perfect system. Some players love it, some hate it. I'm personally somewhere in between. Like, I'm okay with the logic and principle of it, however some items become very frustrating and tedious to purchase, especially maps or low value maps. Now this happens because players will list all kind of junk items at the beginning of a league for a very low price and will start piling up in a stash tab where they rarely sell anything. As the league progresses and everybody starts building some wealth, low priced items that are still listed will start getting ignored by sellers when someone is interested in buying said item. This is especially true for maps where a low tier map sells quite well at the start of the league, but after a while very few people will stop what they're doing, open a portal, go back to their hideout to look for the map, only to make a very tiny profit. So it's just not worth people's time, and you'll end up whispering like 40-50 people looking for that one uncompleted map that you need until someone responds or throws you an invite. If it were up to me, I would implement some sort of an auction house only for maps. I feel like buying and selling maps is always my biggest pain point, and an automated selling process could be the best solution to the problem. Now, naturally, this is my own opinion that would work for me personally, but on the other hand, I can't see anything similar being implemented anytime soon. Now, the last thing would be to cover how to actually list an item for sale so it shows up in the search results on the official website or poe.trade. Now, in case you haven't spent a dime on the game, you will have your 4 standard stash tabs. These tabs will not allow you to set an individual price per a specific item or add fixed prices per the entire stash tab with just a few in-game clicks, so selling stuff is much more tedious and inconvenient to set up. I will cover microtransactions in an upcoming video, but as a quick tip, if you ever decide the game is worth your time and have a bit to spend on it, since everything else is free anyway, the most valuable quality of life upgrade is definitely a premium stash tab. Most weekends these will be discounted and you can buy a few for just a few bucks. Either way, if you have your 4 standard stash tabs, the best way of going about selling your items will be to use a third-party software. So there are 2 available. I haven't used them since forever, but one is called Procurement, or you can go with Acquisition. Both of these do the same thing. You connect the app to your game client and forums with an API key, and from there it will list your items for you. Now, sadly, I haven't found any recent video guides on how to set these up, at least not in English. However, the methodology shouldn't have changed too much. I will leave links down in the description of this video to help you set up either Procurement or Acquisition. Now, in case you have bought a premium stash tab, then it's really easy to price your items. So there are multiple options of selling. You can set a fixed or a negotiable price per the entire stash tab, meaning that everything you put in that tab will have the same price. Now, I almost always set up 3 tabs with different price points, like this. So the first tab will be for 5 chaos, the second for 8 chaos, and then the third for 12. Now my 4th tab will keep my big ticket items, which I will price individually, as you can see in my individuals tab right here. Now, a good PoE life hack to build up wealth fast and with not too much effort is to start farming maps back to back and don't really stop to look at each item and stats and mods. Just ID them and throw them inside a spare tab which has a fixed price for anything in there. I usually set a 10 chaos price and throw in all my drops there after I have identified them. So this gives you a good chance of selling a larger quantity of items. You have high chances of selling stuff that may be worth much less than 10 chaos, and some that could potentially be worth more than 10 chaos. But in time this equals out and you are moving a lot of merchandise with a very good profit margin. Now, this tactic has been working well for me for the past 5 to 6 leagues, so do what you will with this information. I hope this is somewhat helpful. Alright, now that we have talked about currency and trading items, let's see what crafting means in PoE. So, the crafting system is extremely deep and maybe very daunting to new players. Now, I do want to reiterate that these videos are aimed towards new players coming into the game, offering a basic understanding of its systems, so there's no point in going too much into detail about one particular subject, since that could create even more confusion without more context or a specially dedicated video on one single subject. Because there have been a few people leaving comments on the previous video going into detail on specific bosses and boss farms, so I guess they completely missed the point of the video's essence, because I want to share enough info about the game for any new player to get a basic grasp on things, but I won't go into too much details to the point where it will most likely confuse someone entirely new to the game. Alright, it seems I completely went off on a random rant there, so let's get back to the matter at hand, which is crafting. Now, as previously mentioned, the vast majority of the currency items will also be used for crafting. Now, you can just hover over any of these items to read what it does. Some will upgrade items from white to blue, from blue to yellow. These, of course, are item rarity types. Some currency items will allow you to reroll a blue item, a yellow one. Some will add additional stats, and so on. So, in short, you will use your currency items to customize your items, and this system goes quite deep. Now, by the time you get to the end of the story campaign, right after you kill Kitava, this is the last boss in Act 10, which is the last one, you should have all the basic crafting options unlocked. So these are the very basic ones, the beginner ones, right? Now, once you create your hideout, this is also known as player housing, and we'll talk about this in just a few minutes, you can add a crafting bench to your hideout. Now, when you access this bench, you will see a bunch of crafting options available for different item types. So there will be many options that you can apply to specific items, such as boots or helmets or gloves, jewelry, etc. Now, all of these crafting options require a type of currency, depending on what you're trying to achieve, and cost will mainly depend on the rarity of the craft. Now, the base options will be unlocked by simply completing all the quests in the main campaign, and then the more valuable ones will be found in the form of a recipe. So these crafting recipes can be hunted down and earned by completing specific tasks and achievements in the game. There are various ways of getting these tied to different game mechanics, which is super interesting. Some you can get from specific maps, usually found next to the map boss or the entrance of the boss area in the map. Some will be found in somewhat significant areas within the Azurite mine while delving. So basically, you will get a few recipes for each past league's content, which are now part of the base game, like delving, doing Alva missions, doing syndicate stuff, maps, all that good jazz. The main takeaway here is that you have the currency crafting option as an entry-level system, which is pretty simple and straightforward. Then you unlock base crafting options by completing campaign quests, and as you progress, you unlock the really powerful and sought-after crafting options by completing the more challenging activities within the game. Also, when it comes to crafting, there's a lot of gambling you can partake in. This comes in various forms, from simply rolling a Vol Orb on an expensive item, hoping to get a great corruption mod, only to see your item completely altered and ruined, to using chance orbs on leather belts, hoping to get a headhunter, which is the most expensive unique item in the game, to using the level 3 Alva corruption chamber. Basically, this is a Vol Orb on steroids, in the hopes of adding some, OP mods to your items, and again, most often you'll see your hard-earned money just go down the drain. These systems operate on a high-risk, high-reward basis, and can be very enticing to participate in, but if you do, be mentally prepared to lose weeks or months of currency farm in a matter of seconds. Now, on the other hand, if you hit a good corruption in Alva's corruption chamber, for example, then you can make some winner chicken dinner money, So, if you manage to build up mountains upon mountains of money, this can be a good way of burning through the currency fast, or building even a more absurd amount in just a few seconds. Okay, so I really hope I managed to offer a basic understanding of what the crafting system is and what it can offer, how it ramps up from basic and simple crafting options to complex and valuable systems, achieved by engaging in endgame and more challenging content. Now, in case there's some significant interest in a more in-depth video explanation of the crafting system, I would consider creating a dedicated video on this subject. Right, so earlier in the video, I have mentioned hideouts. Now, what are these and why would you need one? Well, besides the fact that you can't be considered an absolute baller without one, you would also need them for trading. Yes, for trading. Now, allow me to explain. It has become a common practice to almost automatically travel to one's hideout whenever you're about to trade with someone. So if you're the one purchasing an item from someone, then you will be the one traveling to your party member's hideout. And vice versa, you'll need to be in your hideout when you're selling one of your listed items. Now, this practice started when phasing was much more prominent in the game, and many times, even if you were in the same party with someone, you could still not see them in a particular town or hub. This was never the case for hideouts, so to make trading more streamlined and convenient, players developed the habit of automatically traveling to one's hideout whenever a trade was about to happen. Now, hideouts are also needed to place your crafting bench, as we discussed crafting a bit earlier. This will come in the form of a hideout item and can be placed as an object anywhere in your personal area. Now, the concept of a hideout is nothing new by any stretch of the imagination. It's the traditional player housing found in many other games. Now, each master will also sell you decoration pieces, which you can use to customize your spot and really make it yours. Now, Grinding Gear Games, the developers of the game, will sometimes showcase the best hideout designs the community created on their website, so really spending an absurd amount of time coming up with something crazy could get you potentially featured. Now, when it comes to cosmetics and having really amazing deco pieces, will often involve their in-game shop, since there are many great hideout decorations which can only be obtained via a real money transaction. Now, I don't think this really impacts anyone's gameplay. Just know that if you're really into hideout design, then there are some pretty cool deco pieces available for purchase. Now, hideouts can be first unlocked after freeing Helena in Act 2 and then obtained in several ways. First and most basic way is to unlock all the base hideouts by completing the mini quests you get when you find the blue, fleur-de-lis icon on your map. Now, many of these will be found while questing and leveling. Once you spot the symbol, you access the area and you will have to clear out all the monsters from inside in order to unlock it. Now, the second tier of hideouts will be unlockable through maps. There are 6 hideouts that can be easily obtained by just running a few maps, since the spawn chance of these are very common. So running these maps just a couple of times will most likely net you the desired hideout. Now, these maps are Arcade, Promenade, Atoll, Academy, Ivory Temple, and Graveyard. I listed these just so you know right off the bat which are the easiest one to get. Third tier of hideouts will still come from maps, however these will be a lot more rare and getting one is a pretty big deal. Now, if you're running maps solo and you come across one of these rare hideouts, it will be a good way of making some quick currency. You join a general chat channel, perhaps the global 820 channel, and offer invites for Chaos or Exalted Orbs, depending on the rarity, and clear out all the hideout as a party, granting the unlock for all members. Additional hideouts can be unlocked through the cash shop, in case you want to throw some money at this specific aspect of the game. I am using one of these purchased hideouts simply because I got one in a past league when I bought a supporter pack and it came as a bonus. You will find a link from the PoE wiki detailing all hideouts, rarity, and spawn locations for each of these. It will be down in the description below. Alright, for the 5th subject on the list, let's talk about quests and story. Now, in case you're really into lore and a solid storyline, I'm afraid PoE does not offer too much in this regard. Naturally, there is a story for the world of Rayclast, detailing a bunch of unfortunate events and rulers and gods in the ancient civilization of Dval. Each boss, villain, and NPC hero will have a somewhat fleshed out story, Most quest dialogues are voice acted, and you'll find these story shrines scattered throughout the world, which starts a voice acted monologue of a character related to the zone you found the shrine in. It's clear that the developers of the game did try to add a compelling storyline to the game, however, it's nothing to write home about. Sometimes it personally feels like the story was an afterthought. They definitely focused on offering a game which can be considered the best of its kind, with a lot of complex and rewarding systems, but as far as lore goes, it's just okay. Nothing deep or outstanding. Now, to be fair, Path of Exile 2 has been announced, where players will be introduced to a completely new story campaign, and there are high chances that the lore will be much more solid and fleshed out, right? Because they now have a good foundation for the story and can take it to new heights. Of course, quests will directly tie into the story, so let's talk about the questing system. As before, nothing revolutionary here. You'll have the big exclamation marks above the NPCs, you talk to them, and you get the quest. I guess they went with the if it's not broken don't fix it idea, and it does work. The system is universally known by most gamers, it's familiar, it's intuitive, so there's not really too much to be said. The way you view your quest log is by pressing the U key. Here at the bottom of this small window, you can click the specific quests to see the area where you're supposed to complete it. All of the completed quests will be grayed out for the specific act. Now, each of the 10 acts will offer quite a few quests, however, not all of them are equally important or intuitive. Now let's dissect this a bit. I've seen that most new players will want to complete all the quests from their quest log, which makes complete sense. Without knowing too much about a new game, it's only normal wanting to have 100% completion when it comes to quests, fearing that missing a few will place you at a certain disadvantage. Now, many quests will only offer a random item for its completion as a reward, which isn't really worth the effort. Other quests will offer you a free respec point or points, which can be semi-valuable, but then again, you can always complete these whenever you actually need to refund a few passives and you want to do it for free. Now, in case you're following a build guide, most will have a fixed passive tree layout and you won't need to respec points. Now, of course, this is generalizing, but most passive skill tree builds will have it, set in stone. Now, lastly, there are quests that you either have to complete in order to progress through the acts and zones, or offer passive skill points, which is absolutely worth going for in order to progress your character. Now, I won't list all the quests that you should and shouldn't complete. This is probably a video of its own, and if anyone is interested, I could put together a leveling for new players type of guide, but until then, I left an excellent written leveling guide in the description below from PoE Vault, which should get you on the right path to PoE success. Now, this subject would not be complete without talking about the most confusing and notorious quest the game has, which is called Deal with the Bandits. Now, for any new player, this can act almost as a trap, and you can really mess up your build the first time around. I know I did. Now, there are 3 bandits called Creighton, Illyra, and Oak, and all of them can be found in Act 2. Now, when you encounter them, you will have the option to either help them or kill them. Now, in case you need to help a bandit, you will get awarded like special passive bonuses as a thank you for siding with them. The other option is to kill all 3 of them, in which case you will receive 2 passive skill points from Aramir. This is an NPC located in town. Now, if you're following an existing build guide, the bandit option should be laid out for you. You will be instructed to either help one of them or just kill all 3. Now, the decision you make here will have a large impact over the way your build performs, so try not to mess it up. Now, in case you need to alter your bandit choice down the line, this is absolutely possible. However, you will need currency for this. Namely, you need 20 regret orbs and a specific kind of amulet, depending on which one's favor you need. In case this happens for your first character, you will most likely won't have that much currency, so completing the change will be troublesome. And you can find a link down in the description detailing all Bandit Choice rewards as well as the needed currency to make the change. Alright, we're making good time here. So, from the questing system, we transition into our last subject on the list for today, which is the Eternal Labyrinth, since it kind of is a questing system in its own, as in you need to complete a few mini trials, then 4 larger trials in order to get your class ascendancy completed and progress your character. There's also a farming component and crafting component to these labyrinths, but that's a different story. Now, to shed more light on the lab, this is the system used to ascend your character and get access to your class ascendancy, which is basically a subclass that comes with some very powerful passive bonuses. Now, in case you want more information about the ascendancies, you can check out my previous video where this subject is covered in more detail. Link will be in the description below. Now, previously, Path of Exile had 3 different difficulty levels, where you would play through the available 4 acts after killing Malachi. Well, 3 initially, but 4 acts. And after killing Malachi, the final boss of Act 4, you would start over again on a slightly more difficult setting and with less resistances. You would complete these zones and quests 3 times, first on normal, then on cruel, and finally on merciless difficulty. This system was completely scrapped, and now you have 10 acts, which in terms of level will get you to the same place as before, but there aren't any difficulty levels, you just lose the same amount of resistances after killing Ketava. Now, although the difficulty level has been removed, the lab system still has the same naming. First, you need to complete the lab on normal difficulty, which offers you the option to select your ascendancy class, as well as 2 notable passives. Next, you'll complete the Cruel Lab, followed by the Merciless version of it. Now, at this point, most people will take a break from these lab runs and get a bit more level and gear under their belt before attempting to complete the ultimate difficulty called the Uber Lab. So the first 3 versions of the lab will work similarly. You complete the mini trials required to open the door for that specific bracket of the lab, so either normal, cruel, or merciless. These mini trials are found in the areas you're going to quest in while leveling. Normal lab requires you to complete 6 ascendancy trials, while cruel and merciless will require 3 each. You will have a link down below where you can see where to find each trial and the recommended level to run all 3 labs. Now, in order to unlock the 4th and final lab, called the Uber Lab, you will need to put in more work since it's RNG based. However, I have a handy solution for you to bypass the systems. So there are 6 trials needed to unlock the Uber Lab, and all of them will have a chance to spawn inside a map. Now, unfortunately, the exact same trial can spawn in different maps, so there are high chances of you getting the same one a few times in a row while you're missing others. Now, the best and most efficient way of getting all of your Uber trials completed is to join the Global 820 chat channel. We have talked about this before. So this is a chat channel where players can help out each other, giving away free party invites to their maps where a specific trial has spawned. Some of them will be offered for free, while other people may charge you a small fee. Either way, it's worth the time and money, since you can complete all your trials back to back because you can ask for invites to specific parties where the missing trial has spawned. Now, at the beginning of our lab discussion, I have mentioned that running these labs can also be considered a lucrative currency farming method. Now, besides getting your ascendancy class and points from the labyrinth, after killing Azaro, the lab's boss in the final room, he will drop a key. Now, you can take this key and open a labyrinth chest in the reward room for a very satisfying loot explosion. Now, the harder the lab difficulty is, the better the loot explosion is. Now, the true moneymaker will come from the 3rd bonus you have access to, which is Labyrinth exclusive enchants. Now, normal lab will offer you 1 go at enchanting a pair of gloves, Crew Lab offers either a glove or a boot enchantment, while Merciless and Uber Lab unlocks the helmet enchant. Again, the more difficult the lab is, the better the enchantment will be. Now the most coveted ones are obtained by running Uber Lab and hoping for a useful helmet enchantment. These will offer direct benefits to a given skill. Things like plus arrows for tornado shot, for example, are worth a couple of exalts. Naturally, as the skill meta shifts, other skill-specific helmet enchants become more valuable, while the rest may drop in price. So to get most bang for your buck, be sure to use the enchant opportunity on either a unique helmet that is widely used in a bunch of builds, like Star Conscious Helm or Devotee's Devotion, or an item level 84 plus helm to be able to get the highest stat possible when crafting. Now there are a lot more tactics and optimization techniques for running lab, but this video is for new players, so the point is to understand what the lab is, what it does, and the opportunity it offers. Right, well, that about covers all 6 subjects for this video. I would like to mention that I am only human and I may forget some random stuff to mention, so if anyone thinks of a basic subject that could be really beneficial to a new player, please mention that in the comment below and I will make sure to bump or pin the most relevant information. Alright, that about covers it for this second video of the 6-part Beginner's Guide series. I hope you guys found something useful in this content. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate all the comments you guys left in the previous video. And as a question for you guys, just reply in the comments below. What do you think is the most complex or complicated thing in the game that you're kind of struggling with as a new player, or maybe as a seasoned player? Who knows? I'm really curious of what you guys find the most daunting, and maybe I could kind of incorporate that in the next video and help you guys out. So specifically what you're struggling with, and I will try to tackle that. Anyway, again, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, maybe a subscribe. If not, just downvote the hell out of it. You know, it's fine either way. I appreciate your time, and until next time, have a great one. Bye bye.